first thing I'm going to show you is the bottom shelf of my Milsbo cabinet. I'll show you each of the plants in it and then I'll move up to the next level. The first plant I have to show you is my Chroniana. This is the regular Chroniana. This is not the super silver. I got this in, I believe it was 2020. I'll show a picture up in the corner. This started off as a one stem cutting with about 12 leaves. I've cut it a couple of times, but it's mainly just grown and grown. It's got peduncles, it's bloomed. Hoya is my Sunrise. I received this as a single strand of about 10 to 12 leaves. I cut it up into 4 pieces. I rooted it and I put it in leca originally, and I had it in leca for about a year, and then I converted it to pon, and that's when it really took off. It likes to sun stress really beautifully. It has aerial roots that go on for days, especially if you look in the back here. So this is one of my favorite plants. This is the Hoya Sunrise. One of the newer plants to my collection is my Tequila Sunrise. I received this late last year, as it originally came as a plant. My daughter and I split the plant. She took the bottom cut and I took the top cut. It originally had 3 leaves, and so it grew the rest of the leaves in my care. Unfortunately, it didn't really get too sun stressed. It is up against the light, but it's not high light. So I'm hoping that once it grows a little more, I can expose it to the light situation and have it get more sun stressed. So this is my Tequila Sunrise. This is kind of a 2-part of a Deke. This is what's left of my original plant. What happened was, unfortunately, I took it outside to do some plant maintenance on it, and I left it outside for several hours, and in the Las Vegas sun, it just cooked it. I brought it inside. It had big embedded dark brown burns in the leaves. Then the leaves turned black and yellow, and then they fell off, and all I was left with was this one original leaf and this stem, which had no leaves on it. So I decided to, since it still had roots, to try and grow it and to see what would happen. I took a cutting off of it, and you'll see it next. But this is what's left of my Deke plant, and if you look very closely, right here, there are some new leaves growing, so that's always exciting. So this is one part of my Hoya Deke. The rest of my Hoya Deke is right here. It started off as this one leaf cutting. As this one leaf cutting right here. And I've had it in pon ever since I cut it. And it's grown these 2 leaves, and it's grown this growth point, which has a nice node on it right here, and another node on it right here, and a new node on it right here. So this is pretty healthy. I have found that Dekes can be very difficult to grow. They like to get spots on them. I found that spraying my Deke down once a week with Physan 20 can kind of block some of that, head that off at the pass a little bit. So this is my Deke. This is a cutting I recently got. This is a species Bahoy. As you can see, it's got beautiful leaves. I'll set this part down. As you can see, it's got beautiful leaves. The leaves are very long. They're about 5 inches. I got this as a rooted cutting. I was a little bit surprised when I lifted it out of the moss and saw that this was all the node that was left. There was no stem. There was just a node. I'm sure I can root it. I have a little problem with how I'm going to root enough to survive, to keep a whole plant surviving. But it does seem to have solid leaves. It's not getting soft yet, so I'm hoping to have some time. I do have a new growth point right there, if you can see it right there. And if not, I apologize. This is one of two Calista Phylas I have in my name. This first one was basically the first rare Hoya I bought off of the internet. I bought it off of a Facebook user. It had four leaves, two sets of four leaves, and you can't really see the original leaves too much because they're all put together, they're all clumped together down here, but the four leaves were down here. It's grown all of this since I've had it in 2020. It has a whole bunch of peduncles. For a while, it was kind of just producing peduncles rather than new stems or new growth. As you can see, this is where one of the stems died and it did nothing else. But now it's got a new leaf here. It's got a new leaf here. It's got quite a few new leaves grown in. It's got this new leaf that formed a curl because it was brushed up against another leaf. So that's my Calista Phyla. This is my Hoya Kadata. This was sold to me as a cultivar big green leaves. The reason it looks the way it did was this was on a trellis with a one stem just wrapped all the way around this trellis, and when it split, just continue wrapping it. Unfortunately, what happened was it got root rot. With these potters, sorry, this one's a little dirty. The net pot sits about right here. And I was putting the water up to about right here, which meant that there was about ½ inch of pond that was always wet with water. Unfortunately, what happened, I found in my personal experience, was that ½ inch of wet pond all the time, when the roots grew down there, that wet pond just caused the roots to rot. And what I had to do with this was I had to, see if I can get you a better view, I had to chop all this up into cuttings and put them in the pot that way, and then grow them out. And now I put wicks in my self-watering pots. So there's the pot, the line that comes down about here, but there's a wick in it. So the water line always stays below where the net pot is that contains the roots of the pot. I found a lot of good success using that method. One last thing, these Kadata leaves sun stress really beautifully. These are 3 new leaves on the plant, and these are right up against the lights, and you can see how beautifully they sun stress. One last plant for my lowest cabinet, and this is my Walliniana. This does not look like a traditional Walliniana. Normally they're very sun stressed. I had one, I'm going to put a picture up here in the corner, but I had one and it was beautifully sun stressed, and it was one very long stem. All these leaves were on the stem, and what happened was root rot. The exact same thing is what happened with the Kadata big green leaf. So what I did was I cut all the branches into nodes, and I put them in pond, and I just grew them out in the pond. So as you can see, they have some new leaves now. There's like a new leaf right there. There's some other new leaves around here. It's not sun stressed yet. I have some sun stressing on the bottoms of some of the leaves, and this leaf here has a little bit of sun stressing, but it'll be gorgeous magenta when it is on a trellis again. So that is my bottom shelf. Okay, now I'm ready to show you the second shelf up from the bottom in my Milsbo, and I'd like to start with this Crassy Petiolata Splash. As you can see, it has gorgeous green on green variegation. It also has veining underneath. The leaves are not that large. They're a nice medium size. This is all one main vine on this plant with branching vines. And I'm also going to show you that right here, there is a peduncle growing. So that's pretty exciting. I will show a picture of what I got. The the 2 leaves. Actually, I think I have it when it was a little bit larger than that, but I got it when it was 2 leaves. I found that this plant is in a 4-inch self-watering pot with pond. And by what I mean is, this one doesn't have a wick actually, but you can see how the net pot goes down to here, but I was keeping the water level up to here. So the roots in this part of the pot were becoming weak. This is not the case with this pot especially, but with some of my others it was. So that's the Crassipediculata Splash. Another plant similar in terms to presentation on the trellis is my Rotunda Flora. I love this plant. It has these gorgeous rectangle leaves. It has what I call 5 o'clock stubble on it. This started off as a 2-leaf, two stems with 2 leaves on each one, and I've grown it into this over the past year or two. I really like this plant. The one thing I want to keep in mind, and this is a good example, is you can see the plant is really trellis, but I have these long wispy vines up top, and that's because I do not trellis Hoya vines until they go all the way down over here, and they can go up to about right here where this clamp is, so they can grow up. If a Hoya stem does not grow up, the growth tip will die off and the plant will have to make another growth point from another area. Actually, I see another peduncle right here, but this one looks like it's about ready to fall off. So that happens all the time too. Don't worry if you get peduncles and the peduncles don't do everything. As long as the plant is happy and healthy, it will bloom. But what I do with these is I wait and keep these long until they reach all the way enough. See, this isn't enough. This points down right now. If I trellis this with this pointing down, this growth tip would die. Probably a good part of the stem up to here would die too. And then I would have to clip it off and start again. So what I do is I leave it running until it gets over here to about the 4 o'clock position. And then I will trellis it and start again. So that's my Rotunda Flora. This is my Sarawak from Latifolia. I received this as a 1-node, 1-leaf cutting near Christmas about 2 years ago. The original leaf is right here. This is sunburn. This is what happens when you take your Hoyas from sun stressed to sunburn. I have another one over here. This Hoya seems to be, at least for me, particularly prone to that. So I keep this in out of the light, behind the light on my shelves. The reason it looks so bushy right now is because these are cuttings. There's one cutting here. There's one cutting, which is this right here. And then on this outside, there's a cutting right here. Actually, I think there's just 2 cuttings. Yeah, that's right. There's just 2 cuttings. This whole cutting right here and this cutting in the back. So this is a new leaf on the Sarawak. They come off really gorgeous red. This is another new leaf right here. And it's got these gorgeous growth points that look like they're ready to grow more with lots of new nodes on them. So this is my Sarawak from Latifolia. This is one of my favorite Hoyas. This is the Huskiliana inner variegated. I received this as a smaller plant. It was bigger than the ones I normally receive, but it still was quite small. It was about this much right here, about this much of the plant. It is a prolific grower. I do find that it requires light, a lot of light, and a higher humidity and a higher temperature. It will grow just fine if you don't have all those things. I'm just telling you, it will grow like a weed if you do have those things. So what I would also like to say about the Huskiliana is that once it starts to bloom, it really stays in bloom. So there's a peduncle with a bloom right here. There's a peduncle with a bloom right here. There's blooms right here. There's blooms right here. And there are more peduncles around. And as you can see, I've done the same thing that I did with the Crassipediolata, that I did with the Huskiliana here. And that is, I'm holding off on these trellises until they can make their way all the way around. This one's almost there, but it's not quite enough for it to tilt up. If I would trellis it now, these small leaves at the end would die. So that's where I'm leaving that right now. This is my Huskiliana inner variegated. And I will tell you one trick. The blooms, they smell like butterscotch popcorn. It's a very interesting smell. My last plant on my second to bottom shelf is my Finlay Sonya. I received this as a trade. I traded a Chroniana red center for this Finlay Sonya. It had one leaf. Let's see. This was the original leaf right here. Since I've had it for about a year, it's grown all these leaves. This right here is a dead growth point. You can tell it's hard, it's firm, it doesn't bend. But it's kind of a woody, it's kind of a woody grower. I would call this a round leaf variety because it doesn't have the pointed leaves at the ends of most Finlay Sonyas, but it does not have an official cultivar designation. So this is just my Finlay Sonya, and that's it for the second shelf. The third shelf is a low shelf. This is where the light is about a third of the distance from the shelf, from the Hoyas, as the rest of the shelves. This is where I keep my Hoyas that I want to sun stress, or that are very small that also will sun stress. The first plant I'm going to show, this is my species Affinity Bertonia. I know this is a species Affinity Bertonia because the leaves are fuzzy. When I touch the leaves, they're very pubescent. But the thing is I have a question. Maybe you can help me in the comments. These are normal species Affinity Bertonia leaves, but then I have all this growth pattern around it that are short, thin, rounded leaves. I don't know if I can show it to you all in the video or not, but it's like a cluster of short, rounded leaves. Do any of you have species Affinity Bertonia grow like that? Or do you have any suggestions as to what's causing this? It's been in my Milsbo cabinet in pond growing for probably about 6 months now. I did underwater it a few times, so I don't know if this is just a stress reaction. Is this a pest reaction? Is this a light reaction? I am feeding it. I feed all my plants the 3-step general hydroponics feeding solution. I don't have any pests, but I have a magnifier and I check them and I don't see any pests. So if any of you have any suggestions, I'd really love to hear it in the comments. So that's species Affinity Bertonia. The next one I have is Huskiliana Yellow. This is the non-variegated version of the Huskiliana inner variegated I showed to you earlier. This is a pretty laid back plant. It doesn't need much. It grows fairly interestingly. It has not bloomed for me yet. I'm hoping that it will. It does have a couple of these real short leaves on top again. Like I said, I don't know if that's because of the light it's receiving such strong light, but I do have a couple of those. No peduncles. It's a good plant. It's grown quite large. It's my Huskiliana Yellow. This is one of my Sipotentiensis. This is part of a larger plant I had. The plant originally came to me in December 2020, And I will show you a picture of that plant here in just one moment. But the Sipotentiensis is very similar to the Huskiliana yellow. So similar, in fact, that I often confuse it. The Sipotentiensis will sun stress beautifully if you give it even the bare minimum of light. I put this on the highlight shelf about 2 weeks ago, and it's already sun stressing a beautiful color. This is in pond right now. It has, as you can see, it's got a new leaf on the end, so it is growing. So this is my Sipotentiensis. I do believe that this is my Rosita. The reason I say I do believe is because there's only like 4 original leaves, which is one here. They have kind of a water film on them, so I apologize that they're kind of white and dirty. But these are the original leaves, pretty clear Rosita leaves. But then I have these leaves on top. So this is another one of my plants that I would love to ask about to see what suggestions and reactions you get. This is a Bella outer variegated. It's also known as an Anakibwa or a Lita bois. This comes from my larger plant. I have a mother plant draped over one of my Milsbos. This does not mind higher sun. It will kind of sun stress the new leaves, this kind of a purplish tint, but it doesn't really sun stress. It does have a peduncle, so highlight will give it a peduncle. It does do new growth. It's a fairly fast grower. I love it. I received 2 cuttings for my birthday as a gift, one from a friend and one from my daughter. I took cuttings from all of them and put them into my mother pot that's outside the cabinet. I kept this one for a possible sale or trade. I just haven't made that sale or trade yet. So this is my Bella outer variegated. This is my Rincy from Borneo. I really love this plant. I love how it looks. It's got kind of a shimmer on it. The color variations are very faded, very muted. This plant came to me as one leaf. So it has these 2 new leaves on top. The red one is the newest leaf. So it is sun stressed. This plant had a hard time growing. It came with a case of scale, and it was very small scale. So I had to get out the magnifying glass to read it, and oops, I did just find another scale. That's disappointing. Okay, so we'll treat this again, but that's my Rincy from Borneo. This is just a cute little Carnosa I have in my cabinet. It needs to be repotted. It does sun stress a little tiny bit. You can kind of see the purple around the edges here and here. But this is just a little Carnosa I got as a gift. And, you know, plants are important to me, even plants that may not be the rarest or the most expensive. If it's given to me as a gift, it's valuable and it's precious to me, and so is this one. So this is a Carnosa. This is one of my most interesting Hoyas. This is called Chroniana black leaves. Now, I think some of the black in the term comes from the new leaves. And let me see if I can see a new leaf. When the new leaves start, they turn this color black just as they emerge. But then they fade down to this color green. What I have done is put it under a highlight situation. And now the leaves, actually the whole leaves will sun stress to a black color. And the undersides also are stressed black. I don't think I'm gonna leave this get stressed anymore. I think this is about the point where I'm gonna call it stop. I got this plant as a cutting for my birthday along with the Rincy Borneo. Going along with the Chroniana is this plant, which was labeled as a Chroniana, but I do believe it is Lackinosa black leaves. This one is pretty much in the basic part of the cabinet as the Chroniana black, but as you can see, this is a totally different animal in terms of how the variegation is. This is more of a brown with the bright light. It doesn't turn totally black. You can see here on this new growth. The new growth does come in pretty dark, but then it fades to this kind of brownish color right here. It's a very beautiful Hoya. I took cuttings off of it to send to friends. I hope they enjoy it too. And that's my Chroniana, or I'm sorry, that's my Lackinosa black leaves. This is my GPS 7240. Unfortunately, it's not as fast of a grower for me as it is my daughter. One of these cuttings, this long cutting right here, came from my daughter for my birthday. And if you see some white stuff on that, that's because it was underwater while I was rooting it, and that's just water residue. So I don't have anything on it. But this came from her for my birthday, and it's grown all of this since then, which is pretty amazing. The cutting she bought for me from a seller had only grown these 3 leaves. So my daughter, I think, definitely has the one with the good genetics. So I will take her plants anytime. I was gonna see if there was a peduncle anywhere, but I don't see it. But I love the grape. If you notice the new ones, they don't have much splash. Even though they are up close to the light, they don't have any purple yet. That, I think, generally comes later. But that's my GPS 7240. This is a cup of cuttings of Illegorum. I had an Illegorum plant that I got in December of 2020, and it was 2 leaves on the bottom and 3 leaves on a stem on the top. And unfortunately, it got root mealies. So I had to do something with it. So I decided to cut it up into nodes and root those nodes. And boy, did it ever root. It's really got a lot of new growth here. All the sun-stressed growth is new growth. If you look back here, you can see all the new growth and all the new stems. So this one is ready to be planted back in its own pot. I think this is really beautiful. I really hope I can get it to bloom. I think the blooms are really beautiful. So this is Illegorum. Last plant I have for the light shelf in my cabinet is one that's not really a plant anymore. This is my Chroniana Super Silver. I received this as 2 small cuttings with about 3 leaves each, 3 to 4 leaves each. And unfortunately what happened was I rotted the roots. So what I did was I took these, I put them in, sorry about that, I put them in 3 node cuttings, and I put them in just a little bit of water, and they're rooting right now. Definitely needs to have some trimming done. Get rid of some of the old leaves in there. But as you can see, they've formed some nice roots so far. I've had them in water for about a week and a half, which is pretty good actually for Chroniana leaves to bloom. So, or I'm sorry, for Chroniana roots to grow. But this is a good tip right here. See this right here? This is a growth tip that has died off. This is the healthy stem. This is the growth tip. What I normally do is nothing will come from this stem. You can twist it off. You can cut it off at the node. Normally it just breaks off like that. That's what I do because I don't like to have a bunch of wooden stems that won't do anything on my plants. So that is my Chroniana Super Silver. Hopefully I'll be able to plant it up and get a whole pot. So that's my second shelf. The top shelf is where I keep my Hoyas that are the largest size and also the Hoyas that I like to look at the most. The first one I'm going to talk about today is this Hoya Fitchie Eye. This Fitchie Eye started as 3 leaves back in 2020 or 2021. I'll put a picture up. But it's really nice because it's grown so much. It has so many new leaves. I have 2 peduncles here. I have a peduncle here, and I have a peduncle here. And they both have bloomed. I'll put a video up to show you what they look like. They're really pretty. They're peach colored. The star shaped petals are reflexed. It's really pretty. They don't last, they last okay. But I've had this for a couple years. I did not think it would get as big as it did. My next plant, I'm gonna have to put the name down in the bottom because I'm gonna butcher the name. It's Hoya Benvergary. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I'm probably wrong. I received this as a gift cutting with this leaf right here. And it looks very similar to my Illegorum. It looks very similar to some of my other plants. And it has this wonderful little growth pattern. It has the thinnest little stems that support these really large leaves. It sits in lower light in my cabinet. This leaf became a little wonky because something brushed up against it right there when it was forming, and so it curved off to the left. There's nothing you can do about that, but it doesn't harm the plant to keep it, so I keep it. This is one of my favorites. This is my Clemency Aurum. I got it when it was just this leaf. It has this little broke tip, but I don't mess with it too much. It's very corrugated, it's very stiff. It does feel like cardboard. It has a ruffled or an undulated edge. It was quite small. So then it grew this leaf. Then this leaf was a little larger. Then it grew this leaf, which was quite a lot larger, but it was kind of curved in. And then it grew this leaf, which is, if you hold it up like this, is much larger than the other leaves. So this is really pretty. It's got sun stress on the back, very beautiful. On the front, it's got very dark veinage. It's got the undulated, rippled edges. It's very firm. It's a beautiful, beautiful Hoya. It's rooted. It's the only plant I have in nothing but cocoa husk. Roots are very good, so I have no plans to change it, except to get it a better trellis. This is my Hoya Meredithiai. I received this for Mother's Day last year, and I love this plant. It's got such gorgeous leaves. The leaves are large, but they're stiff, but they're not too cardboard-like. They still have some bend and some give in them. I've got all these leaves. The interesting thing is this plant came with the stem going from here back down into the dirt. So it's rooted back into itself. So it goes from here back down, and that's it. Then there's another new tendril right here. It is producing, if you can look, it's producing new leaves right there. It's produced a peduncle right there, which is super exciting. And it's got a new leaf right there. This is in a 5-inch pot, but this is a cocoa husk based mix. It was rooted in 3 inches of a solid cocoa husk mask, and I didn't want to break apart the roots any to try and get it used to pond. I'd rather keep it acclimated in what it's acclimated in. But as you can see, this one where I took the dead dying end off has grown a peduncle on the node. So this is my Meredithiai. This is my Nervosa. This is pretty much my favorite Hoya out of my whole collection. I received this in 2020. I received this as in a group of cuttings. I just love this plant because it's very pillowy. The leaves are all different shapes. This is the newest leaf. It's got a new leaf right here. What I had to do was I had to cut this plant up because it had root mealies. Um, Normally when you get root mealies, the easiest thing to do is to just cut off all the roots off of the stem and reroot it all over again. Unfortunately, when you have a plant that has this many large leaves, you have to take that one stem that was supporting the whole plant and you have to cut that stem into pieces so the stem can absorb water and nutrients for those smaller number of leaves. So I did that. This main stem did take off and grow, but as you can see, it produced this very, very wonky leaf. You would think this got squished against something, but this is straight up in the cabinet, so I have no idea how it is because its sister leaf, its companion new leaf, was this one right here. So it came out perfect, so I'm not for sure. Now, when I talk about having a reservoir with a wick in it, this is what I mean. See, this is, let me set this down. This is the net pot that the pond is in, and these are beautiful new roots growing out from around the net pot. But as you can see, what happens often is the roots will actually grow into the cotton wick as they grow out, and that's what's happened here. So roots that grow out like that are definitely water roots, so you don't have to worry about those rotting. It's the plants that are in the pond and the pond gets wet too much that you have to worry about. This is my Rebecca. This is my pride and joy. I received this as two cuttings from a friend with just a couple of leaves on each, and it's turned into this thing of beauty. It's kind of a mess right now because I need to retrellis it, but as you can see, it's got blooms everywhere. It's got a bloom here. 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 It's got blooms over here. This plant is always blooming. This plant grows very fast. I keep it right up next to the light on the top shelf of my Milsbo, so it gets very high light. It does sun stress, although you can only see the sun stressing on the very top leaves. The rest of the plant doesn't really show the sun stressing. So this is my Rebecca. My last Hoya is my Thomsonii pink. I'm going to show it to you, but I have to show it to you in segments. This is the main part of the plant. I received it as a 4-leaf cutting, 4-leaf node. These 3 leaves were the original, and it's grown this. Whoop, I got it stuck. Hold on. Okay, I got it. It's grown this. It's grown this. And it's grown this. So this is the plant right now. I leave it trailing down the front of the cabinet. It does have peduncles. They're kind of hard to see because even though they bloomed, they dried up. So, sorry, that's my dog playing with the toy in the background. So I have a peduncle right here. I have a peduncle right here. So that's my Milsbo cabinet. I really appreciate you taking this journey with me through my cabinet. I do hope you stay on for part 2, which is my Detolf cabinets. If you have any questions or comments or would like to have any input known, please comment in the comments section below. Thank you so much and have a great day.